Happy Father's Day! Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Huge day for Ohio State. A commitment that might have been the worst kept secret in Ohio State history has been made public. A huge, massive new hire to the coaching staff. Kind of a surprise. We're really excited about this kid. We're break down Billy Fussler. And Game of Thrones is back tonight. As you guys know, winter is coming, and winter came for some of our enemies a little bit ago, and again, it was very, very delicious. So we appreciate that. That being said, as always, we appreciate you guys so much for being a part of the Scoop family. I hope you guys had a great Father's Day. For those of you whose father has passed on, I hope that you were able to have a remembrance and honor him. Nevada and I both, obviously, our fathers have passed away, and it's always a tough day. But we also have kids, so it's fun to celebrate with the kiddos. We had a great day today. Shout out Kim; she made a fire rib cap steak tonight. It was delicious. Great day. Wonderful time with the kids. So I hope that you guys had a similar experience and had a great day. If you guys did not get a meal, if you guys had Twin Peaks or Buffalo Wild Wings, that's also delicious. I had Twin Peaks carry out for lunch, actually, and it was delicious. So shout out to our sponsors, as always. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Show's growing, folks. This has been the biggest month in Buckeye Scoop history for the podcast, so we appreciate all of your support. Again, thank you so much for all that you guys do. You guys following us on YouTube, following us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys listen to your podcasts, the audio versions, those are all huge. So thank you for all of your support. This is going to be a huge show tonight. It's going to be huge because you guys make it one. It's always a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to have you guys here. And we appreciate you guys so much for joining us each and every night. And we got Game of Thrones on after tonight, so this is going to be absolutely fantastic. With that being said, this has been an incredible run for Ohio State recruiting. This has been a run in Ohio State recruiting that, we're at the number one class in the country, and there's a lot of incredible momentum towards guys like David Sanders Jr., a couple other big time tackles. We got another running back in the fold from Marvin Harrison's high school, St. Joe's. We're going to get into it. Nevada, your reaction, obviously, we've already done two full podcasts on the running back that committed today, but we're going to talk about him again today because he formally committed, even though we kind of knew it before the official visit even started. But what is your reaction to the recruiting momentum at Ohio State? And specifically, what has Carlos Lachlan brought? Because I think that his energy and his innate toughness is something that I think has been one of the undercurrents of the program, something that I think has been an added authority to the offense. Obviously, I think Chip Kelly and what he does is spectacular. But Carlos Laughlin's toughness is something that when I've talked to people that are in the program, like, he takes no prisoners. Like, there are no sacred cows. And I think that was something that was an issue in the running backs room. I don't think the guys get coached as hard as they needed to. And now, Carlos Laughlin he's a tough customer. And again, I love that kind of coaching. I think that you need to develop those kids and get after them, whether they're preseason All-Americans or they're, first-year walk-ons. I think whatever they're at, they get coached the same. And Carlos Laughlin's the guy that gets after it. What are your thoughts on our new commitment and also Carlos Laughlin's recruiting prowess?
Well, look, the Isaiah West thing, we've anticipated it. We don't it's going, but they're always nice when they get made public. You're happy for the kid. You're happy for Ohio State, and just look, it's another feather in the cap. We moved on from the Tony Alford experience, which was horrible, to now where we get kids that we want. We get kids that other people want. And when I talk to the players, when I talk to the recruits, when I talk to people about Coach Locke, they all say the same thing. He's just genuine. He's the real deal. There's nothing phony about him. And so when you talk about toughness, a lot of people like to talk about toughness, and there's real toughness and there's phony toughness. And Coach Locke is legitimate. He's legit strong. He's legit tough. He practices what he preaches. And he's an impressive guy in the recruiting room. And not only for the running backs, they use Coach Locke for everybody on the team in terms of, talking to parents, talking to kids, talking to counselors, talking to coaches. He's just an impressive guy. He's such a great representative of the Ohio State University. And, he's the perfect fit for what Ryan Day is trying to build here in terms of the staff. And, I continue to watch Michigan struggle with their recruiting because of Tony Alford, and we get Coach Locke, and all of a sudden we're getting the guys that we want to. it just makes it, you just know that the universe is working out the way that it should. And I knew that we'd upgrade when that old kind of madness started with the coach leaving in the middle of spring football. But this is a good get. Isaiah West, you never know who's going to be the big timer, but there's certain kids that you look at and you're like, man, I know this kid can play. I just know he can play. And Isaiah is one of those kids. He committed to Kentucky before I think he even realized how good he was, how much interest there was. And there was a lot of people after him. Ohio State got him. Great day for the Buckeyes and great day for Coach Locke.
Well, something that's kind of interesting is like I was kind of remembering, when Marvin got committed, or excuse me, committed, not got committed. He committed to Ohio State. He was kind of ranked in like a similar fashion. Like he wasn't the be all end all number one receiver in the country. He was a guy that, he was ranked kind of mid tier. He was, I think, like a top 20 receiver in the country, which again, I always look back at that. 'Cause I remember, when we got Marvin Harrison committed, I was like, well, he's huge. And his dad was, I'm not kidding, might have been the best route runner in NFL history. So he's got to be coached up. I mean, the way Marvin and Peyton Manning worked together they're literally the best, receiver duo in history. And I mean, if you just look at the statistics, they've got the most touchdowns, the most receptions, whatever. And it was because of just being in concert, just always being on point. And I think that when you've got a guy, you talk about Peyton Manning and work ethic, you talk about Marvin Harrison and work ethic, Brady, there are certain guys that have that dominating work ethic. And I think that, sometimes these guys that frankly aren't super talented at ranking recruits and studying recruits, I do think there's a northern bias. I do think that, when you talk about skill guys from, Pennsylvania and Ohio, I think that they're graded down because I don't think that these guys see them as much. I think that they're more concentrated on Southern schools, Georgia, Florida, Texas, California, which isn't obviously Southern, but, schools that have spring football, they have 7-on-7, they have, showcases and, they have a spring game. So, this is a kid that he's under the radar now. This kid could end up being the best running back in our class. He runs like a 5-star. His film's great. And it's similar to Marvin. But again, I just think that, people, I don't think that they think that Northern football is what it used to be. So that dings their grade a little bit. And I don't think that these guys get exposed to the circuit. I mean, just this year, the state of Ohio finally passed that kids can play 7-on-7 football. So, I hope that increases their exposure. I hope that because it's not just the recruiting rankings. 'Cause let's just be real. Like a lot of the recruiting rankings, they're kind of dart throws by the evaluators. And then as, offers start to come in for the kids, they adjust the rankings. So, Isaiah West will probably get offered by, potentially like an Alabama or Georgia because Ohio State has him as a come hit. They'll just go do it to screw with Ohio State. And then magically he'll surge up the rankings because he'll have a better looking offer sheet. So, but I'm excited about this kid. I think he's humble. When Carlos Lachlan goes to war for a kid, like I'm all in. Again, he's a guy that's proven he's going to do whatever it takes to be great and to grind. And like I said, I love this kid. Like he seems like he has the right tools. I love, is like I don't want to say Cal McCord was bad. He was kind of mid. But I'm just saying, he was, good enough to get us within like one throw of beating Michigan and being undefeated last season. So, that school's been good for us, St. Joe's. So I'm really excited to see what this kid can do. Nevada, we added a support staffer of note. Billy Fessler is a kid who's been around the program before, left the program to go to Akron. Billy Fessler is a kid that played quarterback around the same time as Trace McSorley at Penn State, played for Joe Moorhead, went to Ohio State under Ryan Day to be, kind of the GA, quality control guy, whatever, worked with the receivers, worked with the quarterbacks, worked with the offensive guys, was good enough as a GA QC to actually become the quarterbacks coach at Akron. Under Joe Moorhead. And, Joe Moorhead is one of the finest offensive minds in the country, in my opinion. He's out at a great job right now, but when he was at Penn State, they were really good. And he was the offensive coordinator in 2021 when Oregon came in and kicked the crap out of us in in the horseshoe, he was the guy that was calling the plays. So, that guy thought enough of Billy as a very, very young coach, 25, 24 years old, whatever he was, to make him his quarterbacks coach, which is impressive. And then in like the strangest, we talk about why coaching sucks as a profession. Billy gets offered the quarterback coaching job at UCLA by who? Chip Kelly, the Chip Kelly, who's I think the greatest offensive mind in the history of football, in college football, anyways. He goes there for a little bit, and Chip takes off, and I'm talking like a month, maybe 2 months tops. Chip takes off, and Deshaun Foster gets promoted, and he brings in Eric Bieniemy, and Eric Bieniemy gets to hire his own staff and hires a different quarterback coach. So I believe that he was kind of sticking around the program as like an analyst type guy, but he wasn't one of the top coach. He wasn't a top 10 coach. He wasn't an accountable coach like he was under Chip Kelly. So I don't know what he's been doing out there or if he's been wherever he's been, but he's in the building now, and this is interesting. So you have a guy basically who would have been the quarterbacks coach at UCLA this year is now an analyst at Ohio State. And again, he's a young coach, and people say, "Oh, young coach, analyst. Like, what does that matter? Who cares?" But when you've been hired by Joe Moorhead as like a 25-year-old quarterbacks coach, and then you've been hired by Chip Kelly to be a quarterbacks coach, like you've got to be razor sharp because you're not going to snow those guys over in an interview, and that isn't like some courtesy hire. That is and again, Ryan Day obviously was, I'm sure, the guy that got him the job with Chip Kelly. Where I'm sure he called Ryan, "Hey Ryan, what do you think of this kid? Is he any good? Should I interview him?" "Oh, coach, he's really good." Fly him out, interview him, and he did enough to get named the quarterback coach at UCLA. Now, again, through happenstance, it was a very short stay there because Chip Kelly obviously took off as the head coach and came to Ohio State, but brings him with him along with Tim Drebno, which I love when Chip Kelly can bring two of his best coaches from his staff to fill out the support staff for Ohio State. But Nevada, this was an interesting because this popped today, and again, I'm happy about it. I think it's going to be a great hire for Ohio State. But what are your thoughts on Ohio State adding Billy Fessler to our offensive support staff?
Well, this was a direct result of Ohio State, keeping all five guys in their quarterback room through spring ball, and they decided they've needed some additional resources in terms of coaching. There's some movement afoot that there could be some changes to on-field coaching, to direct coaching, but in the meantime, they've liberalized the rules regarding out-of-season coaching, and they needed additional resources. So they went to Billy. This is a guy that both Chip and Ryan were familiar with, felt really good about, and it's to the point right now where it's almost like every quarterback is going to have his own coach at some point. And now this is they've got multiple guys in that room, but they've got five quarterbacks to coach up and five quarterbacks to develop, and that's rare. I'm trying to think about a time at Ohio State. I'm sure there's been a time. I'm talking about five like scholarship, real live quarterback. I'm not talking about just having guys in there or walk-ons or Jagger LaRue or whomever. I'm talking about like real live guys in there. They've got five guys that have aspirations of playing quarterback at Ohio State, and they needed additional resources. They went out and got it. I love stuff like this. It just shows that Ohio State, the seriousness with which Ohio State is taking their development at the most important position on the field, the quarterback. And so I was excited to hear about it. I heard rumblings about this might be coming down, so I was excited to see it happen today, and it's good for everybody involved.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, you have to plan for the worst case scenario. And again, Nick Saban is the greatest coach who's ever lived, who's ever walked across the college football field, and he was the master of filling that bullpen up. Because again, the bullpen is basically your coaches that are kind of in waiting analysts, because you don't know who is going to become desirable. And again, the thing about Ohio State is, success is a double-edged sword. It's great that we're, an ultra successful program, that we're, we're on the cusp of a dynastic type run where, who knows how good we could be over the next 5 to 6 years with the way we're recruiting and the way Ryan Day. The thing about Ryan Day that's great is he's an offensive coach and he's very young. He took his lumps, and I think it's time for him to hand some lumps out. But when you look at some of the guys in those rooms on both sides of the ball, there's a lot of guys that in the next 5 years could be head coaches. Like Brian Hartline is like ready to pop any day now. He's never called plays, but He's young, he's energetic, he's an incredible recruiter. So having a guy like Billy Fessler, who's coached wide receivers, sitting in the room, should somebody come after Brian, is a good guy that you could potentially promote into that spot. Justin Fry has made no bones about the fact that he wants to be head coach. Obviously, he has to have a great year as an O-line coach this year, but having Tim Drevno in the room, who coached at Michigan and coached for the San Francisco 49ers when they were the best line in the NFL. I just think that was something that helped Nick Saban stay on top, because he turned his coaching staff over. He got there in 2007 and retired after the 23 season. So that's, 14, 15 seasons, whatever, give and take. And he turned his staff over probably 8 or 9 times, where he lost his coordinators, because people want to replicate the success that you have when you're a great program. And again, that's where we're going to be pretty quick here. So I think that it helps that Jim Knowles is an older guy. It's great for us. I'm glad that he's not a 35-year-old whiz kid, because these owners in the NFL and these athletic directors, they want young, energetic, good looking, is sharp and easy, good talker for the donors to fundraise and the whole 9 yards. So but we got some guys like Carlos Loughlin. I think eventually could be a head coach. I think Brian Hartline could be. So the fact that we're hiring guys who were at high level gigs like this year, like O-line coach, offensive coordinator, or excuse me, quarterbacks coach at UCLA. I think it's great, again, because it's you just never know. And again, like, the thing is this could be one of those seasons where we go win the national championship, man. I mean, there's going to be some coaches that are going to be getting offered big time jobs. Like, when we won it with the Oregon game and we beat them with Urban, like, Tom Herman was gone when Houston came opened, and that wasn't Texas, but I mean, you got to start somewhere to be a head coach. And it's just good. I think that, the way that Ryan is really filling out his staff is fantastic. And I think it's going to pay huge dividends. I just want to show this real quick because, I was talking, wasn't really a rant, but it's kind of talking about, Isaiah West, and, he's 214 and 13th running back and 4 stars, and, not a huge offer list, not Bama and Georgia and whatever. And here's Marvin. So Marvin, 4-star guy, 21st receiver. He was the 7th best player in Pennsylvania his senior year, 21st best receiver in the nation, composite 4-star. Didn't really have huge offers. Like, he had some SEC, but he didn't have Bama, he didn't have Georgia. So again, like, don't sleep on this kid, because if Marvin played for Chaminade Madonna, or played for one of the big, or IMG, and had the exposure that a lot of these kids get, where they're on national TV and they could have these big statement games like Cardinal Tate did, would he have been rated higher? Would he have been more sought after? Probably. But St. Joe's is a powerhouse school in Philly. But I'm just saying, like, I think that there's some northern bias. I don't know how you can miss on a kid like this when he was so good as a true freshman, and the way that he worked, and even just his name. But I just, like I said, I just want to point that out because, I tell people all the time, and it's not hyperbole, I get excited for every recruit, but I don't get excited until they prove they can play college football. Because, again, a lot of these kids, if you looked at the guys, there were a couple of guys that were in front of him that were in his class that, they're still at Ohio State, and they haven't really done too much. But, this kid obviously was that dude. So, Nevada, any thoughts? And we will roll into our super chats.
Well, no, I just think, I think it was well said by you about, Ryan Day and kind of his, replication of what Nick Saban did. Nobody played the analyst, assistant, quality control guy, whatever you want to call it, game better than Nick Saban. And I've said many times, I thought that was one of the reasons, not the reason, but one of the reasons why he won so regularly, was the ability to have more minds out there looking at these problems and looking for possible solutions. And, he would have ex-NFL head coaches in there, ex-college coaches, guys that were being rehabbed. I mean, he was relentless in terms of doing it. And I've always felt that Ohio State wasn't, ruthless enough in that area, didn't dedicate enough resources to it, but they're finally seeming to do it. This isn't a gigantic hire, but it's just another step in the right direction and another indication of kind of the continued maturation of Ryan Day and the adoption of a lot of best practices from some really smart people. So I'm excited about it.
And this is post Rose Bowl when Jackson Smith and Jigba had broke the record with CJ, and Marvin Harrison Jr. had his 3 touchdown performance. So there's Billy right there. So he was in the middle of that and helping out with the wide receivers. They did a little group shot post game, and like I said, I'm excited when we get some of these kids that understand the program. He already knows most of Ryan Day's offense. I'm sure it's changed a little bit since he's been gone. But once you've been in an offense, I mean, it's like riding a bike. I mean, he'll get that back, and plus, like he was already in the process of learning Chip Kelly's offense. So this will be a really simple fix. And again, I like when you get these young coaches in there, they can help develop these young receivers. And like he's worked all over the building. He's been receivers, he's been quarterbacks. Like if Keenan Bailey doesn't pan out, then this could be a guy that could be our next tight ends coach. So. Again, just really excited about this kid. He was a coordinator as a young kid at Akron last year, so that's I think that's outstanding. So we can hit some of these super chats again. I hope you guys had a great Father's Day. Appreciate you guys as always. Larry Daniels, thank you for the 5. What are the advantages of being the 1 seed in the college football playoff this year? If we're 1, we can rest some players like the NFL in last weeks of the season. That's tough because the last week of the season is Michigan in the Big Ten Championship. So I don't know if we're ever going to rest guys. And honestly, I don't think that if I was a starter, I don't think I'd want to rest just because I do believe in ring rust and getting rusty if you don't work. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to them pulling us out of the game early, especially if it's a big lead. I don't think you need to beat the tar out of us, but if we're playing Michigan, we're playing that whole game. Like there ain't no coming out of that one. I don't know. I think you always want to be number 1. You get to wear the red jerseys. You get to have the advantages of what likely could be the best pathway forward. And in general, that's what being the first seed is you get, obviously you don't get home field throughout the playoffs like you do in the NFL, but you get the bye week, I think is huge just because you get a 1 week where you literally can't lose. It's kind of like, I think played that extra week, it's a risk of injury. It's a risk of something, the ball bouncing the wrong way, a fumble, something crazy happening that could cost you a game. So I think I don't think we're going to rest players. I really don't think we can. And I think that's why, Ryan Day's really put the hammer down on trying to build depth and acquire depth through the portal and whatever means necessary, retain the roster, the middle of the roster with NIL. I think that's all just because, you're not going to be able to rest guys, but you're going to have to have guys, if guys get dinged up, ready to go and back them up. Nevada, Larry Daniels, 1. Thank you for the 5. What are the advantages of being the number 1 seed in college football this year? If we're 1, can we rest some players like in the NFL in the last weeks of the season? I'd love your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm going to say something that sounds somewhat heretical, but and we had a thread on our board about this discussing it, but I've looked at this one a lot. And I really think low key, the best spot on the board is the 5 seed. I really do. And let me explain to you why. The 5 seed gets to play 12 in the week. Now that's not as good as a bye, but it's a 5 versus 12. It's a home game, and there is a certain line of thinking. I'm not saying this is right or not, and you may disagree or whatever. But sometimes playing and staying sharp is an advantage. That's why you see some teams come out of the wild card in the NFL and go all the way and win the Super Bowl. They get hot, they keep playing even though they're on the road, and they do some good things. So you've got that 5 versus 12 game. You say, well, okay, Nevada, that's playing versus having a bye. So where's the advantage? Well, then you play 4, and 4, you have to remember, 4 is the top 4 seeded conference champions. So that doesn't mean it's the top 4 teams in the country. It just means it's the top 4 seeded champions. So 4 could be, the Big 12 champion or whatever, and it might not be a very good team. So your first round game, you got 5 versus 12 at home. You got a home game, and then you play 4 on a neutral site, which may not be a very good team at all. And all of a sudden, bang, you're in the semifinals. So, while it's great to being number 1 is great, and you're going to get 8, and who is usually 8? 8's usually a team that lost like in their conference championship game or something like that. So you're going to get like a Georgia or an Ole Miss, or you're going to get somebody that's really good that just kind of missed out, an Oregon or something like that. So I'm telling you, I think that 5 is the sweet spot. I think that's the I think that's kind of the flaw in the system. I think 5 is where I'd want to be, even rather than 1. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's where I'd rather be.
No, I don't think you're curious at all. I mean, I think that you made a lot of really outstanding points, and again, nobody's a bigger expert on us getting ring rust and sucking after a long layoff than me, because we lived it when we got smoked by Florida, and we had like a 42-day layoff, which is insane. I mean, there's no time in football in the history of mankind where you have a 40-day layoff. Like, this doesn't exist. I mean, obviously going into the season with camp, but that's different because everyone's against it. But Florida played. They played the SEC championship, and they were much sharper than we were. Then like LSU, they played in the SEC champ. This is back before the Big Ten had a championship game. So yeah, we were home watching, and I think that the biggest advantage by far to being the 5th seed over the 1 seed is you can't get distracted, and you can't let all of the morons around you and around Columbus and on Twitter and on Instagram and the fan base. You can't let them feed you the cheese. Again, I know that's my favorite saying. You love to make fun of me for that, but it's like, you eat that cheese, man, and all of a sudden that mousetrap snaps you right on the neck and breaks you in half. And that's what happens to these kids, because when you're that 1 seed, everyone in the world, oh my God, you guys are going to steamroll right to the title. Oh my God, this is going to be great. But like when you're that 5 seed, you kind of have that undercurrent where you're the underdog, and you got to go win, and you got to go practice this week, and you got to go do some full tilt practice to get ready for whoever the 12 is. Which again, I think that keeps you a lot sharper than being the 1 seed. And hey, we're off this weekend, and we're going to do 4 good practices and take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and then you got to worry about what our kids get into. Our kids are going to try to fly home, like whatever. So I think staying active is honestly much better, because like in 06, like we played 12 straight games. We didn't even have a bye week, and we were fine. I mean, God, the best game we played all year was the Michigan game. The 12th game of the season after playing 12 straight. Like we honestly didn't. We played like trash against Illinois a couple weeks before that, but then we played very good against Northwestern. We smoked Northwestern, and then the next week we played Michigan, and defensively we weren't great, but offensively we were spectacular with Troy, and won Troy the Heisman. So, do I wish that we could have played Florida the next week? Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm not saying that they're going to have that long of a layoff with the playoff system, but I think that staying active as quick as possible is huge. Because again, I think that in the TikTok universe with these kids and how distracted they get, and the NIL, and hey, can you go do an autograph signing? Hey, can you go open my Get Go? Or because you see some of these Ohio State guys, like I mean, they go to every autograph, every gas station opening, subway opening in the world, and that's kind of their like MO. And these kids will be exposed to that, because these kids like, oh, come see the number 1 Buckeye, come to Buckeye Corner, whatever. And when you've got practice and you've got a game on Saturday, it really limits, your exposure to that. And I think that, I mean, being an underdog, it's almost, honestly, and this will sound like the dumbest thing of all time, but just hear me out on this. It's almost better if you take a loss at some point in the season, because you can beat these kids into a pulp after a loss. If they win every game, even if they play like trash, but they still win, it's a lot harder to correct these kids. So, well, coach, we still won. What are you being an idiot about? What are you screaming about? What are you MFing us about? Well, we played like garbage. We didn't play good. And then that was something like with Urban. I'll never forget, we beat Miami of Ohio like 55-21 his first game. And I mean, we didn't play great, but we scored 55 points, and we gave up 21, and it was the first game. So obviously there's going to be corrections that need to be made. But that next day in that film session, man, it was Vietnam. I mean, it was Full Metal Jacket, and Urban we got mother effed up and down the line. And I was like, okay, we are not in Kansas anymore. And again, and I was fine with it. I was like, hey, whatever it takes, man, 'cause I don't want to go 6-7 again. So if this is what it takes, let's ride. I'm good with it. But I think like if we lose to Oregon, as weird as it is, and again, you guys are gonna think Kirk's lost his mind, and he must have been in the sauce today on his pool raft. But I'm just being real. Like, it could be the best thing that happens to us. So I know everyone's gonna be all distraught about that game. I'm not, because if we lose it, we're still gonna get into the playoffs. If we win it, we'll be the 1 seed in the playoffs, and away we go. So, but I just think that keeping these kids focused and getting them primed leading into the playoffs is going to be his his master stroke of coaching to get these guys. And Chip Kelly's gotten ready for big games. Chip Kelly was won Rose Bowls and NFL playoffs and whatever. So it's like he's got a lot of assets in that room that can help. And again, the relationship. One of the things that people don't talk about enough is the relationship with Jim Tressel and Ryan Day. Because I mean, you don't talk about how he's leaning on. It's Tress. So that's going to be I think it's gonna be helpful because Tress won the big ring, and his team in 02 was nowhere near as talented as this team. So Tress knows how to do it. That Miami team would smoke any team on our schedule this year. So Tress figured out a way to do that and get his guys to peak at the right time. And hey, what an asset to have in your cell phone is Jim Tressel, who will be on the Scoop World Order pretty quick here in the next week or two. I talked to him and he wants to come on the show. So Jay Willie 75, thank you for the deuce. Appreciate you, my friend. This is a great question. Why is no one talking about Mylan Graham? He's on campus now. Well, I think that Mylan Graham is a 5-star wide receiver, and he's at a position where we've had more 5 stars at that position in the last 10 years than anything I think we've ever seen in the history of college football. So, what JJ Smith has the biggest shadow in Ohio State rookie, freshman for history, it's going to be hard for Mylan to stand up. But Mylan is a monster receiver, a 5-star kid, a kid that frankly we should break down and talk about more. But I'll let you take this one for a little bit, Nevada. Why is no one talking about Mylan Graham? And again, really, it's partially because he hasn't played any football yet. All he's done is run around and run wind sprints and lift. So it's kind of hard to really talk about him too much. But your thoughts?
Well, I just think it just shows you how in 2024, how not coming in early or not having the ability to come in early really hampers you. And, we saw it last year where you have Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis, and one guy is able to come in early and one guy is not able to come in early. And one guy plays and the other guy doesn't really get any burnout there. And I just think look, Mylan's going to be a tremendous player. He just didn't have the ability to come in early. So I could not agree more that there is not a bigger time talent that is flying under the radar than Mylan Graham. But the first time we're going to see him, wasn't spring ball, wasn't through the how many practices we had in the spring, but it's going to be in fall football. But will he ball out? Will he do some things? Yeah, but it's a loaded recruiting room, or excuse me, wide receiver room. He's a recruit that just came in, late. I don't want to call it late, but for today's football, it is kind of late. So I think he's just a little bit behind the 8 ball. It's going to take a little bit longer to see his talent, but when we do, I'm sure we'll have many a time to talk about him because he's a great kid and a huge talent. Like I said, you're talking about a 5-star wide receiver, and we know how difficult it is to get that 5th star. He's got it. And I think it's going to be a great one in Ohio State, but people need to be patient because it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I got his tape on here just because, you watch this film and if you didn't know any better, and I said, hey, this is JJ Smith's film, you'd be like, okay, because the guy he's 6'1", 185, explosive, monstrous. This kid's got it all. He's from New Haven, Indiana. Again, so it's not the place where there's really good pizza. It's the Indiana version of it, but like I said, it's hard to get excited about a 5-star wide receiver because, we're deep. I mean, God, we've got Ennis and we've got Tate. I mean, Ennis was a 5-star and, what do you have? 5 catches last year, 10 catches, something like that. Carnell was a 5-star and, 10, 15 catches, started 1 game. So, these guys take time. It's hard because we've had such amazing success from some of these guys early, like Garrett Wilson and some of these freshmen. But that's not typical. It's hard for me to say. And like with JJ, JJ's going to start. JJ might be, JJ, he ran a 23 or 20 or 24 miles an hour almost, or 23, whatever. He jumped 42 inches when they tested the other week. He's got a 42-inch vertical already. So, and he's 6'4". So he's as fast as Percy Harvin and he can jump like Randy Moss. So, I don't know. Are there going to be crazy expectations for this kid? And he works like Jerry Rice. So, So good luck, following that up, Mylan. And again, I think Mylan Graham's gonna have a great career, but when you've got JJ, as the top dog in that class, like it's gonna be hard to play, And again, the thing that I'm really interested in, and I pray to God every day that we start rotating these guys more because we get in these rotations, we play like 4 guys, and I'm like, guys, this is gonna be a long season, and some of these guys' legs are toast by the end of the season, and we used to roll 6 guys, but now we've been in the last couple of years, we've been rolling 3, 4 receivers most of the game, maybe 5, if you use Xavier Johnson or someone for a little bit more, but I think that's something that with the long season, especially when we're playing some of these really bad teams, I think you got to deepen that rotation up and get those guys rolling. But I think Marlon Graham could be a breakout superstar for us. But again, I hope that he finds working. And if I'm Brian Hartline, I start giving him some reps from some of these older guys that really haven't produced. And you guys can envision who I'm talking about. But it's time to make sure that we keep these young guys here and feed them. Like having these freshmen not play last year and then transfer out like Rogers did when he went to NC State, like. That doesn't help anybody, I mean, give some of these guys reps away to those young guys and keep them happy. Asia Pos Doreen, thank you for the 10. Thank you for being an Ultra member. Thank you for the wrench. I hope that your husband had a great Father's Day today. Hope you guys had fun. The weather in Central Ohio is gorgeous today, so I hope you guys got outside and had a little bit of sun. Happy Father's Day, Kirk, Nevada, and all Scoop dads. That's very sweet of you, Doreen. Appreciate the kind people here who are helping this channel grow. We love all and treat ones as we want to be treated. Thank you, military fam, Nevada OH. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I hope that you guys had a great Father's Day. Again, this is a very inclusive channel. We smash more people that act like idiots on here than any channel probably combined. We moderate very heavily. So again, we want this to be a very fun channel. We're welcoming of everybody. Everyone's allowed to watch, have fun. People act like morons. They get zapped really quick. We've got a fantastic moderating career. So, hey, be nice to everybody and don't act out of touch. But again, we love everybody on here. And again, we appreciate everybody that tunes in and grows this channel. Nevada, do you have anything to add?
No, just be kind. We like it when people come in here and are kind to each other. And that's the kind of community that we want on our website. That's the kind of community that we want on our YouTube channel. So just be kind, and it's usually works out for everybody.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Again, appreciate you. ZZM, what is up, brother? I hope you had a great day. Thank you for the 5. Thanks for being an Ultra member as well. I think this is a very, very sharp take. I know that you like to call it a hot take. Hot take, our loss to Virginia Tech was the best thing that happened to us in 14. Thoughts, Nevada OH? Oh, absolutely. It was easily the best thing that happened to us, just because I think, when you look at what happens. So here's what happens when you lose and you're an Ohio State football player. Everyone turns on you. Like, people don't wear their Ohio State gear the next day. Like, I wrote a tweet, like, literally the day after that game where, I went to the gym and I was just like, you know what? I'm still wearing all my Ohio State stuff, just like if they would have won last night. I still I have an All-American tree. I was a first-team All-American, started 40 games, beat Michigan, got 6 pairs of gold pants, got 2 degrees. So, like, if we lose, I don't just, like, flush all of that down the toilet because I'm upset and you guys let me down or whatever. So I looked like Brutus Buckeye walking in the gym the day after we lost to Virginia Tech, because I'm like, the kids need that, because, those kids took lashings immediately, and that's why I used to talk to Taylor Decker and Alf Line and those guys. I was really tight with those guys because I coached, and I was like, look, I still got your back. There might not be anybody else that does, because, we have this very fair weather culture where, heaven forbid, these kids screw up and they don't play great, or they get dropped, the coaching staff can't adjust to a bear defense, because I don't know who their GA was, but I mean, Ed and the GA couldn't figure out bear defense, which, I mean, we had a plan for that immediately. And JT was a young quarterback, and Bud Foster said, hey, I'm going to make that young quarterback throw and beat us. And our receivers couldn't separate, and it was a disaster. So we lost. But again, it's what I just said. I was like, look, sometimes a loss, especially early, can be the best thing that happens to you, because, again, there's this thought process that everything's going to be easy and you're going to steamroll everybody and you're going to win 77-0 every week, and the fans are you're going to cover the point spread every week, and the fans are going to make a bunch of money betting and whatever. And that happens, this vomit of a game that was Virginia Tech. And, the thing that it gives the coaches the ability to do is close ranks, rally the troops, play the whole us against the world mentality. Everybody turns, because again, in Columbus, it goes to negative town real quick when you lose a game. Trust me. I lived after the Florida game. I lived that 6-7 year. I mean, again, I've seen it. So, and I've also been on undefeated teams. Like, I mean, teams that ran the table and made it, won Fiesta Bowls and whatever. So I've seen both sides of the coin. But, like Urban, you want to give Urban some ammunition and some jet fuel to dump on the fire, like lose a game like that. And I'm telling you that building was cooking. That building was on fire. The Woody Hayes was burning, like he was like the dragon, like do the Game of Thrones thing. He was like the dragon that was flying around King's Landing, burning everything down. That's what he was like for like a month straight. But again, that pressure, created diamonds, and all of a sudden those guys got big rings because, can you imagine the beatdowns that they were taking for not just the players, but the coaching staff from Urban, and how much it tested their resolve and how much it made them work harder and figure out the problems and figure out how to win. Because after that, man, it was game over. I mean, we were buzzsaw on teams, and I'll never forget, I was in Vegas and I was watching they played the Cincinnati Bearcats, and it was a home game, whatever. They had Gunnar Kyle as their quarterback, and I'll never forget looking at the big board. I was at, oh God, it was the place that sees the big sports book that was named after, I think it was at Legacy Stadium. And the Buckeyes were 75-1 to win the national title. And I didn't bet it because I was just like, I don't think that they're going to get in, because I think that Virginia Tech, you got to remember, after they beat us, they went out and lost to East Carolina the very next week at home. So they laid the ultimate, it was like they blew their load and beat us, and then they laid a big egg the next week. So I was like, that loss looks really bad when East Carolina comes in and whoops Virginia Tech the next week. So, but I think that, like Nick Saban got smashed by Texas at home early last season. And I was like, that's the best thing. Cause I was like, that's the last time those guys are going to lose until they get to the playoffs, because, Nick Saban was able to empty the clip on those kids every day at practice and say, you guys think you're good, you ain't good. And he could remind them and get after them. And I think that sometimes is good, because I think that sometimes these kids and these coaches and these people in the program, they get a little big for their britches sometimes. And, I think it's better to get smacked in season as opposed to at the end of the season. Because again, I lived it where we went undefeated in 2006 and then we got smashed by Florida. It's like, well, what if we would have lost like early in the season and we would have realized that we were mortal and not Superman, and all of a sudden, oh God, guys, if we suck, we can lose. Because again, I think that there is a false feeling of invincibility going into that Florida game. And again, there were a million things that went wrong in that game. Obviously, our best player broke his leg, which that's not good. And we turned it over. We had personal fouls. Like, we played like absolute morons. So you're never going to win a big game versus a team with equal talent when you play like an idiot and you have personal fouls and injuries and, you don't convert on fourth and short and whatever. But I think losing early in the season is actually really good. And again, I could be crazy, but I also don't care because I know that I'm right. Nevada, your thoughts? ZCM says, again, thank you for the 5. He says, hot take, our loss to Virginia Tech was the best thing that happened to us in 14. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. I've said many times on the show that when bad things happen, you always look for the blessing. And for Ohio State, it enabled them to kind of reassess what they were doing, reassess some of their schemes, kind of reassess where they were in the college football world. Because at that point, you might have been one of the few people that had belief in that team, because that was about as low as it gets for the fan base. Because to lose, it's one thing to lose to Florida or to lose to LSU or whatever it was, but to lose to Virginia Tech at home that way, I mean, that game was never competitive. Yeah, it looked like anything but a national championship season, and we all know how it ended up. So I just think it's a cautionary tale, just like all these recruiting rankings are. I mean, you did a great job with the Marvin Harrison recruiting ranking. You could have equally used Quinshon Judkins' recruiting profile, to compare as another guy who's under recruited. But you never know on recruits, And you never know when a game turns out bad that it could be the catalyst that sends you on to great heights or greater heights. And with the expanded playoff, it's never been more true than 2024, where one loss, two losses, even three losses aren't the end of days. And you'll never know if it really works out until you see the seeding and how you lined up and how you played and how everything worked out. So keep an open mind about the season as you kind of watch it. Don't despair. Trust the process, and I think everything's going to work out okay for Ohio State.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that is, it's something where, we lost in '07. We lost to Illinois at home, which is embarrassing. I mean, you're the number one team in the country and you lose to an unranked team. Now, granted, they were as talented as you could ever imagine in Illinois team, because that was when they had Mendenhall and Vontae Davis. I mean, they had ballers on that team. But that being said, you can't lose at home to an unranked team. But I think that helped us kind of re-galvanize ourselves to go up to Michigan and beat like a really good Michigan team that had Hart and Henney and Jake Long and Manningham and Adrian Arrington and Brandon Graham and Crable and all those guys. So I think that losses can go. It can either get the team to tighten up and ball, or it can kill a team. So that's when you have a really good test of your leadership, honestly. Because if you have great leadership from your players, especially, what an opportunity to change the course of the organization and turn a negative into a positive and find that silver lining, as Nevadabuck likes to say. Zeke, thank you for the 5. First of all, it's been put in for DeBose to the Ohio State. When are we thinking he's going to commit? Well, I haven't seen that, and I don't know if it's the guy, the wackadoo guy from Rivals that always says, like, Andrew Smith, who's hilarious, and he puts in all these crazy crystal balls that don't mean anything. But I haven't seen it. Again, I like that kid a lot. He's a big dude. I'm gonna toss his film on here in 2 seconds, but he, I mean, if he committed to Ohio State, I wouldn't be surprised. But the reputable sources, I mean, including us, like we look at the stuff and. I think he could be a hot minute, but, he's got, Ohio ties, and, the people I talk to that are really tied into the offensive line recruiting, they specifically said him, and David Sanders as the two that they really thought had a good shot to be in this class. And I didn't elicit that. And I was, but I mean, the Ohio
Did you say
ties,
Davis? Did you say Davis Sanders?
No. I hang on. I gotta put that up. I was gonna put up Micah's stuff, but I know you guys are big social media nerds, and the Tennessee recruiting staff is like the all-time greatest ever. Where they literally they host David Sanders Jr. for his official visit, and one of the people with him posted this on Instagram. This is like when if you want to be really stupid, like here's his little fillets, his little greens and whatever. They misspelled his name. They called him David Sanders Jr., who's the best player in the country. They called him Davis Sanders Jr. And again, sure, there's two parts. There's that won't mean much. That doesn't mean much. It's just a faux pas. Oh, the S is right next to the D on the keyboard on your laptop, so it's not a big deal. That's a huge deal. That's so impossibly stupid. It's just that's just so bad. So this kid shows up with his folks and whoever's on the visit with, and they sit down and they don't even spell the kid's name right. And again, I lived it with Urban, man. He called Ethan Posick the wrong name, and it was never the same. And it was something where Ethan Posick was going to be a Buckeye. Ethan Posick, plays for the Browns now. He went to LSU, was a great player, was like a 2nd or 3rd round pick by the Seahawks, and he's with the Browns, and he was going to be a Buckeye. I loved his parents. I loved his brother. Graham Posick was a really good player at Illinois. But Ethan was going to be a Buckeye, and then we didn't call him the right name. And after that, it was like you might as well have just, I don't know what you could have done that would have been worse than that. But we did that, and so it cost us a really good player. So Tennessee doing this is actually a humongous win for Ohio State that they're that stupid to do that. And again, I'm sure the kid played it off. I'm sure that the kid, it's no big deal, whatever. it's a huge deal because again, it's like the little things like that, and when you're in the recruiting game, every little bit counts, man. Especially when when everything's like a razor's edge between Tennessee and like I said, I've been told Georgia's out, and again, I'm not making that up just for my health, but I was told that. So I felt like maybe Tennessee, Clemson were our biggest competition, but I think it really helps Ohio State. So again, his favorite player is Paris Johnson Jr. So Paris had the dream career, 3-and-out, NFL, 6 overall pick, graduate. I've gone through his stats a billion times. He's going to be starting left tackle for the Arizona Cardinals this year. So I really like where we stand with David Sanders. And guess who's going to be on campus this weekend? David Sanders Jr. And guess who's going to make sure that his name is spelled right? Mark Pantoni and all his little minion acolyte dudes are going to be running around making sure that they use the letter D instead of the letter S at the end of his name. Nevada, any thoughts? Because that was just so spectacularly bad, especially for a player of that caliber. But any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, little stuff does matter. I mean, there have been huge contracts and guys that have signed with other agents because they got the name wrong, or guys that have gone to different schools because there was a misspelling. Because I think a lot of times what players take it as it's a sign. It's like, hey, this is a sign. This is whatever spirit you want to attribute this to. God, Allah, the great zing, whatever it is, it's somebody speaking to you saying, you know something, I shouldn't go to Tennessee. They don't even have my name right. So yeah, no, that was that was odd. That's one of my favorite. That'll never not be one of my favorite stories, especially after Davis Sanders Jr. commits to Ohio State, and we can all call him Davis from now on.
Yeah, I mean that's like one where if I was his recruiting host, I would literally call him that the entire thing. I call him Davis just because I think that that's so funny. Because if I was his host, I would totally make fun of that. I'd say, are you seriously gonna go somewhere that didn't even know your name? Like, I mean, they literally didn't even know your name. And again, his name is one of the most common names in the history of the English language, and they literally screwed it up. So I don't know. Like I just like some kids have really wild, long, crazy, exotic names where I could see if there's a hyphen in the wrong place or an apostrophe in the wrong place, but David ain't one of them. So to screw that one up is whew. I mean, like I said, that I would hate to be that recruiting staffer that was responsible for typing up the name badges, and it has to cop to that and go talk to the offensive line coach. Because again, the line coach and the offensive coordinator and the head coach and the recruiting guy, they've spent dozens of hours recruiting this kid. I mean, flying to see him, driving to see him at his high school, watching him at scrimmages, whatever. And it all just went down the toilet. So I don't even have words. I mean, that was like with Ed Warner and Mike Vrabel. Vrabel recruited Chicago when he was there, and that was where Posick was. And like, I told Pantoni, I was like, I don't think we're going to get Ethan Posick anymore. And he's like, why aren't we getting Ethan Posick? I was like, because Urban called him the wrong name. And I love Coach Meyer. And I knew, and after that, like we instituted a rule inside the recruiting spectrum that if you walked into Coach Meyer, and again, I love Urban Meyer to death, but he's not great with names just because that's kind of his thing. His memory is kind of shot because I think he just burns so much energy being, that dude that names aren't really at the highest of his priorities. But we instituted a policy after that day that every time you take a recruit into Urban Meyer's office back when he worked there, you were to say, hey, Coach, Ethan Posick is here to see you. Hey, Coach, Ethan is here to see you. Ethan, you walk in and, so that it could just like right at the front of his face, and that could never happen again. So that was part of my Ohio State lore. But that was a wild day because, I mean, Ethan, like we had a great practice and he was so excited about being a Buckeye, and whew, that was not fun. Pooh Beard, right on time, man. We just talked about this. Again, thank you for the 5. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for being an Ultra member as well. Does Tennessee think they did well with Davis Sanders? Whew, with the top recruits, details matter. I think this sets up very well for us next week. Nevada OH.
And what did Urban Meyer call Ethan Posick?
Evan.
Evan.
Called him Evan Posick. And I mean, I was sitting there on the couch in his office next to Ethan and Ethan's mom and dad, and his dad was a firefighter. He had really bad knees. I remember I took him all over campus, and I was giving him tours of the RPAC and I forget what his major was, and I knew where all the elevators were in the buildings because his dad literally couldn't go up. His knees were so bad, it was like stairs were like misery. So I always found an elevator. So no, we'll find an elevator. I knew right where they were, super smooth. So like I crushed it with that kid. Then we had a great practice. It was spring and it was physical and it was violent and he loved it. And Ethan was a really tough kid. And he was so excited. And then like I go in that room, man, and he called him Evan like 15 times. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, am I hearing this right? Like, yeah, because I'm a GA. Like it's hard for me to correct Urban, and I don't know, but it was one of those things. I was like, oh boy, I don't. And I mean, he was on our board, man. He was in there as like he was like on the board, like committed. Like yeah, they put those little. They've got all these little magnets all over the bill, all over the thing where you stack the board, and I'll find a photo of it where they show like these are the guys that we have committed and where we had them ranked and whatever. And I mean, he was right at the top. I mean, and we had him like kind of as a not a silent verbal, but we had him in as a guy. Yeah, this guy's going to be in the class. So it was that sucked because I thought that kid would have been, and he would have been. He was. I mean, it was funny. They played him at center at LSU. He's a 6'7" center, but he was really good. And again, he's playing center for the Browns now. So what a day that was. That was not great. Nevada, anything else to add on David Sanders Jr.? Pooh Beard again. This was it was kind of funny. This is a weird super chat because we literally just talked about it. And then you'd put the super chat in, I think, while we were talking about it. So I appreciate it. But yes, does Tennessee think that they did well with David Sanders? I say there's no way they can think they did well. With top recruits, details matter. I think sets it very well for us next week. Nevada, do you have anything to add to that?
No, details do matter, and if he goes to Tennessee, it will be one of the all-time great recruiting upsets. I just don't see it happening. I think Clemson. I think it's Clemson, Ohio State, and I think Ohio State's the leader.
And like you made a great point. Like when you said like these kids are all looking for a sign. They're all looking for some. Well, everything's close. I mean, kids. I mean, there's kids that they pray over it. Where should I go? Because not every kid's like me. Like I grew up an Ohio State fan, wanted to play at Ohio State. I didn't need any science. I just needed the offer. And as soon as I got the offer, I was in. I'm done. I hated recruiting. I don't like pomp and circumstance. I don't want to do a commitment signing ceremony. I just want to go to work. That was it. And so like, but some of these kids, they go get wined and dined and whatever. But like, I think that all of these kids deep down know where they want to go. And I think that, these extra visits, it's somewhere between like a free vacation and just doing like due diligence. And then I think that there's this new third layer where it's kids want to, if it doesn't work out at Ohio State, hey, I remember how it was so good to you on my visit at Tennessee and we chopped it up and had a good time. Could I transfer portal there? Because I think a lot of these kids, they take these visits because they think that it might not work out at Ohio State. Maybe Justin Frye leaves and he hates the new position coach or whatever. Like, I mean, there's anything that can happen in college football. So I think that's why a lot of these kids visit. Because I mean, I look at some of these kids and they're committed to like Georgia and they're also visiting like Purdue and Sheboygan and Central Michigan and Akron. They're doing photo shoots at like, Indiana, but they're committed to Georgia. And I'm like, well, why would you ever do something like that? Oh, it's because you're keeping those lanes of the portal wide open in case you get beat out. And again, it happens every year. So we'll see. John M, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. Let's suppose Connor Stallions didn't exist. How do you think history would have changed? Well, I just think that we would have smashed Michigan every year. I mean, you just got to look at how they went from being just absolute turds, trash, to turning into like a powerhouse. And it wasn't like the recruiting magically got better. It wasn't like they changed out all their coaches. I mean, it was still the same head guy, and they actually, I thought, got a worse coaching staff as it went along. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I think that, we would have beat them, obviously. I mean, again, the fact that CJ Stroud could end up being the NFL MVP in the next year or two and was never able to beat Michigan because it cheated, it really is a crime. And again, that's something that, CJ has to live with. And again, I'm sure he's fine with it because, he's paid in the shade and he's doing great in the league. But, to not ever beat Michigan, it does suck, because again, at the end of the day, like, you can have a mountain of money, but, when you don't ever beat Michigan and you don't really ever win anything, it kind of sucks, I mean, it's just a bunch of empty numbers, but I think we win, flat out. I don't think Michigan wins a championship. I don't think that they get the kind of momentum that they got going. But that's just my opinion. Nevada, let's suppose Connor Sirens didn't exist. How do you think history would have changed? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Harbaugh would have been fired, and yeah, I think C.J. Stroud wins a couple of Heisman's. So some pretty profound changes. If you want to look for like peak, like the moment that the cheating was at its absolute pinnacle, it was the second half of the 2022 game at home, where Michigan all of a sudden, like, they couldn't stop us in the first half, and also in the second half we couldn't do anything against them, and inexplicably just laid like a gigantic egg and lose. And I think that it would have changed everything. But I look at it this way: I wouldn't trade anything for where we are right now in 2024. To be able to see a team like this with all these guys, with all these veterans, with the Treys and the Jacks and the JTs and the Denzels and the Quinn Johns, all these guys that are either new guys here or guys that stayed an extra year, maybe that doesn't happen too. So I'm always looking at the blessing. I think the blessing is this 2024 seeding. So for all the cheating and for all the underhanded stuff that Michigan did and destroyed their brand, going to get crushed by the NCAA, laughing stock of college football. I think they actually did us a favor because they gave us this wonderful 2024 season, and I would not have gotten to enjoy it had Connor Stallings not cheated. So I really believe that. That's not like hokey pokey talk. I don't believe our guys come back unless they had unfinished business, and that's the unfinished business is the 2024 season.
Well, I don't know if Harbaugh leaves either. I mean Harbaugh, obviously he'd probably have been fired if they didn't cheat, but I mean, I don't think I think every part of my soul feels like he left because he knows what's coming. And again, it wasn't just him. They all left. They're all on the inside of it. I'm sure that he got with all those coaches privately that all went with him to LA, including what's funny, the old operations director. So that's the interesting thing. So that we did that story on the operations director. I don't know if it was like 3 weeks ago, where we said another huge staff loss, and that's probably right when Aaron Dunston started, talking to Michigan. So she's been talking to him for 3 weeks before she pulled the trigger and put a bullet in Ryan's head the other day. But I think that history would have been much different. Sharon Moore would be a nobody, and he probably would have been on the street next to Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Harbaugh certainly wouldn't have gotten $100 million from the LA Chargers. But again, I love the position that we're at right now because I think that this team is going to be incredible to watch. ZCM, thank you for the 5. House of Dragons Season 2, Episode 1 tonight. Who's ecstatic like me? Oh, God. Oh, God. Do I love Game of Thrones? I love me some Game of Thrones. Nevada, do you love Game of Thrones?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, if you're on any of the streaming services, the streaming service that you need to have is Max, because Max has got Game of Thrones, Sopranos, The Wire, all this thing. So I'm in the middle of binge watching Game of Thrones from the beginning, in anticipation of my House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 1. So yeah, I'm very, very, very excited to see it. And like I said, and if you've never watched Game of Thrones, get Max, put it on, and just it's the best written, best developed, best character rich show that I think it's the best show in the history of television. People can argue that, whether it's that or whatever it is, but it's an absolutely extraordinary series. And yeah, I'm over the moon excited about the season 2.
And who's the person that told you should watch Game of Thrones?
Connor.
Yes, I was. It was not Connor Stein. And I have my Night King mask, which is fire. This thing is fire. So
it was Davis Sanders. Davis Sanders is the one who told
Davis Sanders Jr. It was Kenyatta Goodwin was the one that told you.
It was Evan Pochik.
Oh my God.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine you sitting there as he calls him that over and over again, and you're like, "Hey, Coach, his name's Ethan."
I mean, like, how do I say that to Urban Meyer when he's on a roll? I mean, he was on a roll. I'm sitting there and I'm just like, and then, I mean, I walk out of that room with Ethan Posic's dad and mom, and Ethan's dad, who I love to death. He's such a good dude, tough Chicago guy. He's like, Coach Meyer didn't even know Ethan's name, and I was like, oh, I was hoping like a piano would fall. I was hoping a piano would fall out of the sky and land on me and just end me right there in the middle of my workday. But it was like,
God!
You want to talk about suck? I mean, that sucked. And I was like, oh, we're gonna lose a kid that would have been like a cornerstone, because he was like a Billy Price kind of kid. Like, he did everything right, smart, tough, physical. Like, he was everything you'd ever want, and that's why he's still playing. That's why he starts for the Browns now. But my favorite Game of Thrones characters by far, God bless Tywin Lannister, who one of the most quotable human beings of all time, and the Hound. Oh my God, just so excellent, so good. Tywin Lannister is like my all-time favorite, though. He's the best. You put the king to bed without his supper. No man who has to say that he's the king is a true king. I was like, oh, that's so perfect. Poohbeard12, thank you for being an Ultra member. Again, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, brother. The official visit list next week is insane. 5 stars, many high 4 stars. How do we personalize / make each guy feel important with so many high priority guys there? Well, I mean, we have 8,000 people that work at the Woody Hayes now. And we have, and a lot of them are totally worthless, but I mean, you can divvy them up among each coach has like 2 quality control coaches and an intern and a recruiting guy. And, we have 80 million people in there. So, again, this is where you got to have like these guys like Mark Patini, and it's not that hard. Like, it doesn't have to be, ultra personalized, because, everyone's going to get a cookie cake. Everybody's going to get like a bag of Reese's Pieces and brownies for their bed, and everybody gets to go to Hyde Park and eat a steak. Everybody gets to go to Town Hall and eat a cheeseburger, and, check out the hotties that are running around the little cocktails at Town Hall. So, I mean, it's not like that hard. I don't know. Like, I think that if your guys are any good at recruiting and they have brains, they can, look at the social media of the kids, look at the girlfriend's social media, look at the mom's social media, look at the dad's social media, look at, auntie or grandma or whoever's coming. Like, say, hey, who's coming? Okay, it's going to be me, my mom, my dad, my sister, my, in my instance, it was my mom and my uncle, because my dad was obviously dead, so he couldn't come. So you're allowed, they pay for 2 adults to come with you. So my uncle came. So, but obviously they didn't do any special things for them, because I was whatever. And plus, like, that wasn't really a thing back then. But, I would look at the kid's Instagram, and if he likes Lil Baby or whatever rapper he likes, or he likes Morgan Wallen or whatever. By the way, Morgan Wallen's Whiskey song is absolute fire. That came out last night, and my poor neighbors heard me blast that about 50 times today at the pool, because it is fire. But I will say that, it's just not that hard. I mean, figure out what video games he likes, figure out what rappers he likes, who's his favorite player, preferably his favorite Ohio State player, if he likes Chase Young or Nick Bosa or Orlando Pace or Paris Johnson, whatever. Try to tie that into the visit somehow. What's his favorite food is always great. If he likes cheeseburgers, take him somewhere where there's cheeseburgers. If he likes steak, if he likes beef Wellington with a Coke, or he likes vodka tonics, like whatever he likes is figured out. Um, and again, that's like, if you put in like 6 seconds of effort, you can make the kid feel way more special than anywhere else. Because it's just not hard anymore. Like with social media, it's like a big cheat code. What's his favorite designer? Does he like Gucci or Louis Vuitton or Gallery District or whatever? Like, I mean, it's just, figure out what rap song he likes so that you can play that during his little photo shoot. Get him his Five Guys. Get his order that he likes at Five Guys, whatever burger place he likes. Like, just like little stuff like that. Which again, you've got all these little Geppettos running around that make $10 an hour. Have them ask them. Say, hey, we're setting up your meals. What is your favorite order from Chipotle or whatever? And feed him until he's stuffed at the gills, and have him have a time. And honestly, if you want to be really good, figure it out for mom too. Figure out what mom likes to eat. Figure out what her favorite singer is, whatever. If little brother's coming, figure out what his favorite video game is and have that ready to go in the PlayStation 5 while they're doing the photo shoot. Like, there's all these little dumb things you can do that people say that's dumb, but it's not dumb when you crush it in recruiting. Because again, it ain't hard. You don't have to be like, when people say, oh, well, he runs these official visits and they're just so incredibly perfect. I'm like, yeah, take him to town hall where there's hot waitresses running around and the food's good. And then take the parents to Hyde Park and feed them lobster and butter and seafood towers and filet mignon. Like, I mean, and literally any moron can figure that out. But yeah, so it's not really that hard, especially since Columbus is an excellent city to host in. Because if you're not hosted it in Starkville, Mississippi or something, you're hosted it in like a really lively, fun town where the kids all have a ball, and every kid that comes here from South Florida or from California or from Georgia, they're like, man, it's great here. This is a great city. This is fun. There's a lot of stuff to do. Wow, there's great shopping. Wow, you guys got a Gucci store? That's crazy. That's amazing. I thought all you guys had was cows and tractors and, cornfields. I was like, no, dude, we're Ohio. This isn't Iowa. This isn't Nebraska. Like, we have like really cool stuff here. So enjoy. Nevada, Poohbeard12, again, thank you for the 5, says, the OV list next week is insane. 5 stars, many high 4 stars. How do we personalize / make each guy feel important with so many priority guys there? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I thought you did a great job of kind of covering that. Look, but it's been an issue at some points in the past where they've had, things about, having too many kids, not enough time with Ryan Day. And that's been an issue for some people. And so I think they've done a better job of managing that. I think they've managed kind of the list. They've got a nice mix of committed kids already that are 5 stars with the uncommitted. And I think Ohio State's dialing it in. So they'll be ready. Like you said, it's not hard. It's a lot of little details, and Ohio State's got to figure it out.
Yeah, and again, like I think that it's just important, and they all know who's coming on the visit by now, because they got to book the plane tickets and all that. But I think that's just critical. Figure out if it's we've had guys, like I had a guy who I played with who brought his girlfriend, and I'm like, talk about like just being like a whatever. I'm like, did you brought your girlfriend on the official visit, man? Like, you don't bring sand to the beach, moron. But he did. So that was interesting. You don't see that a lot, but again, I'd figure out what she likes to eat and do kind of the whole 9 yards, because I think that the personalization thing, it takes maybe 85 seconds to do. What's your favorite candy bar? What's your favorite video game? What's your favorite rapper? And a lot of times you don't even have to like ask the kid. You can just get on his social media and say, okay, every single one of his Instagram stories is, to Lil Baby or whoever, or to, King Von or whatever. I mean, you can figure that out in about 8 seconds. So it's a good, it's going to be a good night. Thrones tonight, Nevada. All right, let's wrap this thing up before the dragons start flying around on HBO. What are your final thoughts?
No, I'm just excited about Isaiah West. Looking forward. I think there's going to be more commits coming out of this weekend. I'm still thinking, hearing really good things about DeBose and Ohio State, and we'll know more about that in the next 24 and 48 hours. But I think he might be in the class as well. So buckle up. We'll keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that there's going to be more stuff popping, which is a great time for you to join. BuckeyeScoop.com. We got a ton of recruiting analysis from this weekend on there, so we appreciate if you guys join up with us. We've got the #1 Ohio State message board site. It is always lit on BuckeyeScoop.com. I'm going to jump on it as soon as I get on here. So, again, I really appreciate you guys each and every night. Another fantastic show. It's a huge show because you guys made it one. So thank you again. I hope you guys had a great Father's Day. For all of you who have someone to celebrate, I hope that you guys had a great time. For all of you that have lost your fathers, as I have, I hope that you had a little moment where you could celebrate the time that you did have with them, because mine was very brief. It was only the first 12 years of my life, but I missed the guy. He was a monster. He's a great dude. Taught me a lot, gave me some good genetics, so I appreciate him, and I hope that you guys had a little moment of remembrance for that moment. So if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys so very much for all that you guys do. Again, this is such a huge show because you guys make one, and again, I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great Sunday night. Game of Thrones is back. It feels better when there's something great on HBO on a Sunday night, like The Sopranos or Game of Thrones. So I'm going to get into that. I'm really excited about it. So again, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your night. Again, thank you for all you do. Go Bucks.